Hey, welcome back. In our previous video, we talked about some of the systems that we use to prioritize feedback within Centercode. And in this video, we're going to learn all about how we can manage feedback and triage feedback. So here's what we're going to talk about. First off, we're going to talk about how to view feedback. Then we'll talk about how to edit feedback, what are statuses and severity, and finally, we'll talk about what duplicate feedback is and how we can use it to consolidate feedback within the system. So let's go ahead and check it out. All right, first off, let's learn how to access the feedback within Centercode. We've got a couple different ways to do this. First off, I'll show you the feedback view, and then I'll show you one of our dashboards that we can use to take a look at the top feedback within Centercode. First off, we're going to go up here to our menu bar. We're going to select feedback, and as you can see, we have all of our different feedback types within this menu. I'll go to issues. And this will go ahead and bring me to what we call feedback view or simple view. This is a basic, almost forum style way of looking at our feedback. And it's a great way to get to your feedback immediately and start filtering for the things that matter most to you. Now we can do that using the filter options up here at the top. You can see that we've got a couple options for all feedback. If I click on this, I can see that we also have the option just to view public feedback or feedback that's just owned by me. We can also take a look at feedback by phases or features. So if I only want to see the feedback from the regular usage phase, I just click on this, and it shows me all of the issues from that phase. I can do the same thing with features as well. So if I click on this, and let's say I only want to see issues with our controllers. There you go. Those are the two issues that belong to the controller's feature. We can also filter by status. We'll talk more about status later on in the video. But let's say I only wanted to see issues that are currently under review. There you go. Currently we have 3 issues that are under review. Sorry for the voice crack there. I can also narrow results by keywords. So if I want to search for something like device or overheating, let's see, overheating. It's going to go ahead and take a look at our issues, and you can see right there earlier today we had a piece of feedback where our user was experiencing overheating after 30 minutes of usage. So there we go. We've got some options there as well. We also have a couple different options when it comes to sorting our feedback. So I could sort by the newest feedback. I could sort by the feedback that has the newest replies, maybe the most replies or the most reported. One of the most popular is sort by highest feedback or impact. And this allows us to take a look at the highest impact issues that are currently in our platform. And you can see that can I install software to different SSD is currently the highest impact piece of feedback inside the project. If I hover over some of the elements of our feedback here, you can see I have the impact score right here. This has an impact score of 36. And it also has 4 Me Too votes or upvotes. So 4 other people have voted on this and said, yeah, I was experiencing the same issue. If we click on the summary, it'll take us right to the feedback item. And right below that, we have the status that was set 2 weeks ago by the project user. And we also have the feature associated with this piece of feedback. So this is Moculus desktop app, and it's associated with the regular usage phase. Now off to the right, I have a little notification bell right here. This denotes that I'm following this feedback item. And if I click on this, it's going to go gray. That means I'm no longer following the feedback item, but I can click on that again, and it's going to go green. So any of the green items here are feedback items that you're following if it's got that green bell. If I click on the chevron right below it, that's going to expand the card. And it'll allow us to take a look at things like the steps to reproduce. It'll also give us a more detailed look at the feedback card. So we can see that this is the #1 ranked issue, and it's in the top 1%. And we also have the ability to quick update this piece of feedback. So if I click on this, it'll give me some update options. So I can go ahead and update to status if I'd like to. I could also convert this to a different feedback type if I need to. Let's say a user submitted an issue and it was really an idea and we want to make sure it's in the right bucket. We can go ahead and convert it to an idea if we'd like. But this gives us very quick access to some of our triage tools. And we'll talk more about that in just a second as well. Next to that, we can also see the replies for this piece of feedback. So 5 users have replied to our cannot install software to different SSD issue. At the top, you can see that the original submitter actually submitted some comments. They did a bit of digging and found a support article. Our project admin replied and said, hey, thanks for the submission. So it's possible, but it's just not accessible. That's what we seem to be getting at when diagnosing this issue. And then we have some continued discussion from other testers right here. And collaboration is a big part of Centercode and our impact scoring system. It really allows us to build the highest quality feedback within a project and make sure that we have loads of context, loads of collaboration, and loads of information for our stakeholders. Right next to that, we can see when this item was submitted and who submitted it. So this is our tester. This is actually the last person to reply, it seems, the tester. And then right next to that, right next to our impact score and our vote, this is the original submitter. And if we click on their icon there, we'll actually go to their user profile. Up at the top, you can also see that we have the option to expand every card in our list. So if you want to keep every card expanded, that's totally possible. And clicking on this is also going to retract every card. So we'll go back to this form list view. We can also auto-follow all of these items if we'd like. And then right here we have what's called advanced list. And this allows us to build out filters and views to get a more granular look at our feedback. And we've got a whole separate video covering that later in the course. Definitely recommend that you check that out as well. Now that we've got a better look at Simple List here, let's go ahead and take a look at one of the dashboards that we can use to view our feedback within Centercode. So I'll go to the Management tab here. I'll select Dashboards. I'll click on this menu option here, and then I'll just go down to Top Feedback. And this is just going to present a list of the top feedback in our project based on its impact score. So you can see that the top item in our entire project is this piece of praise. It's got over 300 impact score, 36 upvotes, and it was a very high quality unboxing experience. And if I expand this card, it felt like it was opening an expensive Apple product. Well done. We can also filter this dashboard as well. If I go up here to the dashboard filter, I've got plenty of options available to me in terms of filtering out this dashboard. So let's say, for example, I only want to see issues. I would just click on the ideas and the praise icons here. And now you can see that we have a view that's a little bit more similar to what we just saw with Simple List. I could also narrow it down based on date or phase range. So if I wanted to see all issues from out of box to regular usage, I could update my dashboard and get that result right there. I could also just go ahead and search by teams as well. So which teams have submitted which feedback. Let's say I have unique features for my iOS and my Android teams, and I only want to see Android teams issues. I could select that team and go ahead and just see their issues, which is great. Likewise, I can go ahead and narrow it down to maybe just praise and ideas. So now I just see praise items here, and as I scroll through, you can see that there's no issues popping up. I can also narrow it down by features as well. So if I only want to see feedback items for the headset controls, I can go right there. As you can see, once again, presenting those top feedback items. Now that we have a better idea of how to view feedback within Centercode, let's go ahead and check out a feedback item and learn how to triage and edit feedback. All right, so now that we know more about how to view feedback within Centercode, let's go ahead and take a look at a feedback item and learn how to triage it. So I'll start with one of our high impact score items here, cannot install software to different SSD. Just click on the title and it brings me right to the feedback item. So lots of information here, a lot of things to break down. Let's just start from left to right. On the left-hand side, I have some of my different feedback menus. This includes the summary, which is all of our key feedback information, things like the steps to reproduce, the status, the severity, etc. And we also have right below that the occurrences. So this is going to include things like the submitted feedback, how many predictive matches were submitted to this piece of feedback, how many people voted on this piece of feedback and said, yeah, I also experienced that, as well as any duplicate matches that we have found as admins. So you can see that we have a total of 4 occurrences. And we have 2 submitted items right down here. So we have that original item, and then we also have a related feedback item that we marked as a duplicate. Right below that, we also have the history of this feedback item. So it's going to break down when it was submitted, who submitted it, the total number of edits and viewers, etc., who viewed it first, who viewed it last. And we also have a change log right here. So this is going to show all of the different changes that have been made to this piece of feedback. So if a field was edited, if a status was changed, etc. Our last option here is related. And this is where we can search for pieces of feedback that aren't the same as this feedback, but may have some kind of relation to it, maybe something in common. So what I could do is I could type in something like desktop here and hit submit. And Centercode is going to search through and try to find feedback items that match our keywords. So we've got a couple different options here. Desktop shows blank notification preferences. AirLink works intermittently. Unable to download Moculus desktop app. So this is something where I could hover over this and actually click on the link button. And it doesn't mean that this piece of feedback is exactly the same or that we're marking it as a duplicate. Instead, we're saying, hey, these feedback items are related, and it allows us to cross-reference things and kind of build a log of related pieces of feedback. So really, really good for consolidating things and trying to find threads between different issues or ideas, etc. Right below that, we can also convert this feedback type. We can convert it to an idea if we'd like. What this will do is it'll take a lot of the common fields shared between our issues and our ideas, and it's just going to convert it directly into an idea. And we can also convert an idea into an issue. So why would we want to do this? Sometimes testers don't always submit feedback in the right bucket, right? They may submit an idea as an issue and vice versa. And this allows us to very easily convert that feedback type over without having to resubmit the ticket, which is great. All right, let's go ahead and check out the summary now. Once again, this is all of the feedback information submitted by the tester. So we have our summary up at the top. They can't install the software to a different SSD. And the feature associated with this issue, which is Moculus desktop app. Below that, we have all of the steps to reproduce, as well as some other comments telling us what happened. And if the tester had submitted any files relating to this issue, they would appear right here in the issue related files. Now, we as admins can also upload files if we'd like to and add more context to this feedback item. Below that, we have severity and status. And these are 2 fields that are very critical to how feedback works within Centercode and how we track things. So first off, we have severity. And this is tracking the overall priority of a piece of feedback. So if I click on this, I actually own the piece of feedback, and we'll talk about how to own feedback in just a second. If I click on this and click on the drop-down menu, you can see I have a couple different severity options available to me, from critical all the way down to NA. And these are going to affect our impact score. So a critical issue or an idea that is marked as a must-have is going to have a lot more impact score than something that is cosmetic or minor on the severity scale, or maybe a nice-to-have idea. And NA is just going to cancel that out entirely. So we can use that to go ahead and prioritize feedback and make sure that we're handling things in a way that, we're tackling those critical issues first. We're moving on to those more kind of minor or trivial issues or feedback items a little later. Now below that, we also have the status, and this allows us to track the feedback's progress throughout our triage process. We've got a couple different statuses here, everything from open to discussion to need more information. We actually have a status that also allows you to send feedback directly to Jira if you'd like to. We have a very nice first-class Jira integration built into Centercode. And all of these communicate to the platform where the feedback is in our process. 2 really important ones here, especially with regards to issues, are will fix and fixed. And what these do is it tells Centercode, hey, this issue, we're actually working to resolve it, or we've already resolved it. And that'll go towards our impact score, our test impact score. And we'll cover test impact and success and health a little bit later on in the course when we tackle our Delta KPIs. But those 2 are very important there. Not only does it communicate to the testers, like, hey, we're working on this, and we're going to work on fixes, and we're going to make sure that this issue is actually resolved, but it also lets the platform know, hey, this is what we're doing. I can also assign this to another user who's on my team. Currently, I own the piece of feedback, but I could very easily assign this to Brad Anderson, who's another member of our tester support team, and then he can go ahead and make edits to the feedback. Finally, right here, we have the blocking issue option. And this is where we can decide whether or not something is a blocking issue. And blocking issues are issues that are preventing testers from actually completing the activity and testing the feature. So for example, let's say we had a Bluetooth feature. We're asking testers to go ahead, open up the Bluetooth menu on their phone and try to connect to this device. And every time they do that, it just crashes, right? We're just simply unable to connect to Bluetooth. We would consider that a blocking issue. If Bluetooth is crashing and we can't actually test the feature, we're being blocked. And that's naturally going to affect the impact score of the item as well. A blocking issue is naturally going to have more priority than a standard issue. And we can switch that back and forth here. I own the item here, so I can just swap it between no and yes. And when I click on that, you can see that stop sign shows up, denotes that it's a blocking issue. Below that, we have all of the replies. Feedback within Centercode is very collaborative. We try to bring in the other testers inside the project to bring in their context and their insights, see if they're also experiencing an issue or if they have agreements with an idea and want to share kind of more ways to make it better. Same thing with praise. If someone says, hey, I really love this feature, the replies is a great place to gather those customer insights and those sentiments. But here in these replies, the tester themselves actually did a bit of digging, and they found that in order to move it over to the SSD, you need a command line input, which is maybe not the most accessible thing for users. Our project lead picked up on that and said, yikes, thanks for the submission. So it's possible, it's just not very accessible. And then we have continued comments from other testers saying, hey, this is what worked for me, this is what I ran into, etc. So a really, really great way to make sure that testers are collaborating together and that we get the highest quality feedback possible. Of course, if you want to reply to this feedback, right now I have it set to lock new replies for some reason, but you can add a reply very easily. We have a dialog box that's right above replies, and you simply click on this, add your reply, and then down here at the bottom, you can decide which users are actually going to be notified when your reply goes out. So right now, we'll get a notification going out to the feedback owner, but we could also include original submitters, all submitters, any previous feedback owners, and then all collaborators. So anyone who has collaborated on this piece of feedback. For now, I'm just going to leave it on these two options here, OS original submitter. So that would be the person who actually submitted the feedback in the first place, and then the feedback owner. And then I could type in my reply here and add to the conversation. I can also add files if I'd like to. I can star this to make sure that it's important within our conversation. And then I have a little text bubble here for threading. So reply is very, very powerful, allows us to really engage and make sure that we're having a robust conversation around feedback. And then down here, we have our duplicate feedback menu. So as the feedback owner, I actually have the ability to find other pieces of feedback that are similar or the same, and then say like, hey, I want to take my current piece of feedback and add it as a child to this new parent feedback item. So that's what duplicate feedback allows us to do. It allows us to consolidate items. Let's say we have 10 items that are all the same, consolidate them all into one feedback item. So for example, we have our list here. Centercode has gone ahead and provided us with a list of items it thinks are very similar to this feedback item here. And let's say that unable to download Moculus desktop app is actually the same issue that we're experiencing here. And we want to take our current item and make it a duplicate of this unable to download Moculus desktop app item. So I would just hover over it right here. I would click duplicate. It's going to give me some validation messaging here. The current feedback will become a child to the selected feedback, and this cannot be completely undone. I'm going to confirm that. And this is going to go ahead and lock the feedback item because it is now a duplicate of this unable to download desktop item. So if I click on this right up here, it'll take us to that item. And now this is the parent feedback item. So this is the feedback item that we would be working on rather than our previous issue right there. Of course, you can unduplicate an item if you want to. Just note that Some things may change when you unduplicate an item. They may not be exactly the same. So just keep that in mind in case you are unduplicating a feedback item. It may not be 100% the same as it was before you marked it as a duplicate. So I'll unduplicate this right here. There we go. It is no longer marked as a duplicate. Next up, let's go ahead and check out how we can actually triage feedback. And some of the items on the right side of the screen. All right, so let's talk about triaging a feedback item, what we need to do to be able to triage a feedback item, and we'll cover the remaining items here on the right side of our screen. So first off, in order to triage a feedback item, you need to be on a team that is able to handle feedback. For this project, it's the tester support team. And that means that anyone who is on the tester support team can go in and edit feedback items. Now, you can also go ahead and check out a feedback item to make sure that you're able to be the only one who can edit that. And you do that by clicking on this button right up here. So right now I have the feedback checked out, and I can check that feedback in by clicking on it. So that'll load right there. And if we scroll down to the bottom here, you can see that this is now owned by tester support. So anyone who's on the tester support team, they can go in and they can edit this feedback item. Now, if I want to be the only person to edit this feedback item, again, just click on the button. That means the feedback has been checked out. And if we scroll down to the bottom here, you can see it is owned by a project, which is my user. In order to edit any of the fields on a feedback item, just hover over it and click on the field. And you can edit pretty much anything within a feedback item. So we can change the summary here. We can go ahead and also change which feature is associated with this feedback item. We can change the steps to reproduce. This is great if a tester has gone in and provided more context and more information on the issue they're experiencing. We can go ahead and update those steps to reproduce and some of the more of the information they've provided. One thing I like to note when talking about feedback triage is it's always about improving the tester's voice and making sure that we're really getting the spirit of what they want to get across, whether that's an issue they're experiencing or an idea that they have, or just a piece of praise for the product itself. We never want to get rid of the tester's voice and replace it with our own. Instead, it's all about polishing and refining what they're trying to say so that when it reaches our stakeholders, they have the highest quality feedback imaginable. So it's always additive and, improving their voice rather than replacing it with another voice. Down below, again, if we wanted to add files, we can very easily do that. We can click on this field and change the severity if we need to. So let's say this is actually a little bit less, severe than we realize. So we can move this down to major. We could also move this status to open for discussion. So if we want to get other testers involved and have their experiences shared in the reply section, we can definitely do that. And we can also change the internal tracking ID, but this is an optional field. We don't necessarily need to do that. I'm going to click submit here just so we can see the effect that some of these changes have. Previously, we had an impact score of 36, and by changing that severity to major, we've actually gone down to 27. And this is a good chance to kind of transition to the right side of our screen and check out all the options that we have here. So you can see that this is an issue. It was created 2 weeks ago. And down here in our card, we can see that the impact score is now 27. And that's because changing that severity also changed the feedback weight. So right here, you can see the feedback weight. It changed from 2 to 1.5, and that resulted in that loss of 9 feedback score right there. Popularity score, though, stayed the same. So this didn't affect any of the replies, comments, duplicates, etc. Those all stay intact. So the popularity score is unchanged, but our feedback weight has changed a little bit. This is still the number one issue, though. So that has more or less stayed the same. And right below that, you can see that this is the original tester who submitted it. We can click on their profile and actually travel there and see things like their performance and some of the other feedback items they've submitted. We can also see their tester impact score. So this is the total amount of impact they've generated as a tester. So basically adding up the impact score of all the feedback they've submitted. And if we click right here, we can actually see the other feedback submitted. So this will include any other issues that this tester has submitted. And then right below that, we have owned by project. So this denotes the current owner of the feedback. If it was our team, like we saw earlier, it would just say tester support. And of course, we have the ability to check in and check out feedback if we belong to the right team. Up here at the top, we can also follow this feedback item. We can mark it as unread. We have some UI options here just to increase and decrease the width of our kind of center data panel right there. And then once we're done with triaging a piece of feedback, we can move on to the next item. So this is our other item here. Couldn't find any Wi-Fi networks. If we need to, we can go ahead and check in or check out this piece of feedback, continue the triage process, continue that process of collaborating with our testers, getting more information from them, and then just moving on as we make progress through our phases. So right there is kind of a really nice breakdown of feedback triage. In our next video, we'll actually learn how we can use advanced view to build out specific filters and views to see specific feedback that matches our criteria within the project. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you there.